balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Rick. Got to get that R in there. You know, I'm feeling my oats today. Let me just tell you that right now. Hey, you know what? 3 Chevy gave me a fantastic idea for the Christmas show, okay? And by that, I mean the one that is coming up on Monday, because don't forget, we have Christmas Eve and Christmas itself. So the 24th and the 25th, I will not be broadcasting, okay? I'll be spending time with the family, as you all should, all right? As you all should. But on that Monday, the 23rd, I will be broadcasting. And 3 Chevy just gave me a fantastic idea, and I need all of your guys' help. I would like you to take photos of Christmas decorations, all right? I need you to go and take photos of your Christmas decorations, or maybe even something out in the in your neighborhoods or whatever, and send them to me. Send them on to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will show all of them off on Monday as part of the show. How about that? Do you think that'll work? I mean, that's, not that I'm necessarily looking for, a subject matter or anything, but I kind of want to send you into the Christmas holiday with a kind of a happy note. So if you are of mind to do so, that would be fantastic. And I would love to see pictures of, like, for an example, from Becky down under. I'd love to see what they have with Christmas. And you know what, Amy, whether you celebrate it or not, it's okay. If you can find something, great. If you can't, it's not a problem. Maybe take a photograph or something of, like, a local church, or maybe take a quick drive through the neighborhood, pick up some light displays, whatever, and just send them on to me. That way we can all get together, and at least for part of the show on Monday. Okay? Part of the show on Monday will be with this, all right? So that's my challenge to you. Help me out. Help me get Monday's show at least partially covered with some good Christmas light, Christmas ornaments, Christmas whatever, just whatever it is, just Christmases. Not to give away too much, but 3 Chevy sent in some nativity scenes. So do things like that. That's what I'm looking for. Even if you have to go to, like, a local church or something like that to go in and get that taken care of. But I would love to see some of the photos and stuff from all of you with regards to what you guys are doing. And I've got a couple, or I will try and get Mrs. Whiskey on it, and we'll pick a few up from our neighborhood just for that, okay? All right. Let's get things kicked off and started. Also, too, don't forget, the 500th episode is coming up. That's actually going to be on the following Monday, on December 30th, I believe, if I'm calculating things correctly. Anyway, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight, it is our Pledge of Allegiance is being led by Coco, Cam, and Sean. And for those of you that don't know, Sean is autistic. He's normally nonverbal, but for this, he gets so excited. He likes to get involved. And so you'll hear him starting to recite the pledge in the beginning. Then he'll drop to his normal nonverbal, and then he'll come in at the end. So it's not that big of a deal. Nothing to worry about. It's just Sean being Sean, and that is fantastic. I love the fact that this young man gets all excited over our Pledge of Allegiance. It is just fantastic, and I love this particular pledge. I love playing every single time. All right, so If you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Coco, Cam, and Sean in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Coco, Cam, and Sean, for that. I do appreciate that. If you would like to hear your version of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing it in your style, and then take that pledge, or take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email, send it off to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans at americanperspective.online. And by the way, speaking of fans, before I get into our headliner promo, I got to tell you folks, it fills me with all kinds of joy. You really don't know how, I mean, I can't really describe this, but you really don't know how much I look forward to doing this for you and seeing all of the regulars that come in and interacting with all of you, whether it is on social media, through email, or even during the shows in the chats when I can. You guys just don't, you don't understand. It's I can't explain it, but it's just fantastic. And I hope someday we will all be able to get together and be able to meet in person. It would be fantastic. And I've got some plans. I'm hatching some plans on that, and future shows will show. All right, let's get on with tonight's headliner promo, which will be True Grit Roots Network. That's tgrn.net is our home on the web. You can go and find us and listen directly from your browser. Also, too, you can download from that website. You can also download our app, or if you already have the Live 365, the AUDACY Odyssey app, or the iHeartRadio app, you can find us in their catalog of digital radio stations to listen to. And let me tell you, one of the things that I like to listen to is on Sunday morning. I love my buddy's show, Oogie's Sunday Groove. It is exclusively on TGRN, True Grit Roots Network. It's hosted and produced by my buddy, multi-award winner Jonathan Oogie Richards. Oogie's Sunday Groove takes you from the front porch to the pew, featuring the roots of blues that came from the church and the field. Grab a cup of coffee Sunday mornings and join Oogie for a spiritual awakening through music. Now, it does air Sunday, 9 a.m. Central Time. However, if you miss the 9 a.m. Central Time, you can listen to the 9 p.m. Central Time airing also on Sunday. He does it twice a day for those of you who need to have that Sunday morning coming into your life. Listen to Oogie's Sunday Groove in the morning. And also, too, there's a couple of other shows that go on, like Lady A's Gumbo and Gospel is also on Sundays. Just a fantastic show. Great gospel music. Get you uplifting and going on the Lord's Day. You got to check it out. Sundays on tgrn.net. That's True Grit Roots Network, based out of Austin, Texas. All right. So just so you guys, I know there's a lot. I was going to talk about a government shutdown, by the way, but I was going to start off kind of talking about what to know about it and so on and so forth. But the reality is that, well, we don't have that situation just yet. I mean, at least if the Senate, gets off their ass and takes care of stuff. The Democrat-controlled Senate, by the way. The Republicans have been taking a hit, quite a bit of a hit for the last, several days with regards to this. We'll say the last 48 hours. Because it really hasn't been several days. It's just 48 hours. But the Democrats now have the ball in their court, the Democrat-controlled Senate, because the House passed a spending bill. Just before I came on the air, they finally did it, which is, okay. So look, continuing resolutions, first of all, it's sort of like it's sort of like, continuing promissory notes to pay and things like that. They really are not actual budgets. And so realistically, a continuing resolution, first of all, if Congress had actually done their job back in September and passed the 12 appropriations bills that were sitting there to keep government funded all the way through until the next congressional session, they actually would have avoided all this crap. So, honestly, I am not one to really need or want to have emergency spending bills like this go through. I think it's a stupid thing. I think it's ridiculous that they can't do their damn jobs and get the spending done and get the bills appropriated properly on time. They seem to drag their feet all the time when it comes to crap like this, but it is an emergency measure. And what needs to happen is the continuing resolutions, whenever they go to get passed, they should pretty much simply say, look, we're going to continue funding what we need to fund for the next, 3 months to make sure that we, cover our butts or whatever. They can't freaking, what do you call it? They can't, they really shouldn't be allowed to add a whole bunch of extra crap into the bill. It should essentially be, look, this is just a Band-Aid to keep us running while we pull our heads out of our asses and, do our jobs and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, this time around, they tried to slip in some stuff. And thankfully, we had people like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are now part of the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which is essentially think of it as more like a civilian oversight agency. It's not really an agency, but it's more of a committee, I guess. But anyway, they went ahead and they put out all this information about what was in the CR, the original CR. There was 1,500 plus pages. Yeah. Well, that got shot down immediately after Elon and the rest, they got on the horn. They, by the horn, I mean X. They started, putting it out into the public of all the crap that got added. And then the Republicans had to go back and figure out, okay, what are we going to do here? Well, they went and they passed, or they got presented, I should say, a CR that had a few things, but a lot of the other stuff was stripped out, and it immediately got voted down. All right, so I've kind of caught you up on what's happened over the last 36 hours. Well, then, as a stopgap, they went back to the drawing board, and they now have passed a final resolution. And it passed under a suspension of the rules, which, of course, requires, by doing that, a 2/3 majority. And now it went ahead and got passed. And so things like the $100 billion in disaster aid for the damage caused by Hurricanes Milton and Helene was in it. Also, too, it will provide $30 billion in economic aid for farmers and a 1-year extension of the Farm Bill. Those were a couple of things that Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, and J.D. Vance all kind of came together. And understand they all know and they're working on this stuff, okay? And so anyway, they kind of got together and they did all this. Now, the one thing that President-elect Donald Trump wanted to actually do was raise the debt limit. Raising the debt limit is essentially like raising your credit limit. They just keep going and they keep going and they keep going. And for whatever reason, and honestly, I'm not really sure why Donald Trump wants the debt limit raised. I mean, to me, I would think that they would want it capped because that's part of why we elected you and elected people in this. But apparently he's looking at doing some spending, obviously, when he gets into office. Now, all of that, of course, is going to now, because the spending, the debt limit ceiling raise is off the table and has been voted, or has been, the bill's been voted on and passed along. And so now what we need to do is they're going to push that into the next congressional term, which is fine. I mean, that's okay. I hope that the Republicans won't actually raise the debt ceiling because they just did it not that long ago under Kevin McCarthy, under Biden. So honestly, I just don't think that, I just don't think that that's necessary. But anyway, Democrats, of course, were pissed, but they voted on it anyway. They went ahead and passed it. Because God forbid, the political capital that's being spent on all of this stuff, you got to understand, even though you have principal values and things that you want to hold yourself to, you've got to, in order to advance certain agendas, there is a bit of a give and take. And because of the fact that we have such a narrow, and by that I mean 1 seat majority in the House and only 3 seats, okay, in the Senate, there's going to be some give and take. And unfortunately, we're probably going to lose some. I mean, we're not going to be able to bat 1,000. But I guarantee you this much, though, is that Donald Trump has consistently demonstrated throughout his public life that he is a winner. He likes to win. And so he is going to do everything in his power to make sure that he wins. Okay? So that being said, he's not going to be on the back end of a deal or the bad end of a deal if he can help it. He's going to be on the winning side. And that's what we voted him in for, was to be that. Well, anyway, so the point being here is that that essentially it's been passed for now, and for at least in the House. It has to go to the Senate. The Senate will have to do what they're going to do with it. And I'm hearing through the grapevine, a couple of articles have already been published that the White House has already said that they will go ahead and sign the bill. Because here's the reason, folks, and this is why this becomes so much of a pain in the ass, let's say. Rather than doing what they should be doing for the American people, the Democrats and the Republicans generally try to one-up one another all the time. And in this particular case, as long as the House, which is Republican-controlled at the moment, and will be in the new year, but it is Republican-controlled, the Dems pretty much have always tried to, stick it to the Republicans. And as long as the Republicans look like idiots, and believe me, that happens more often than I'd care to admit, but as long as the Republicans look like idiots and are taking all of the mud from the mudslinging, they could care less. Well, now, unfortunately, the Democrats, because of the fact that they had this bill, all right, that they went ahead and passed. Now the Democrats have got potentially egg on their face. So here there was a statement that was put out. Let me see. Who is this? Johnson, I believe, pointed out. I'm sorry. This is the White House. This is the White House's. This is the White House statement that was signaling support. It says, while it does not include everything we sought, it includes disaster relief that the president requested for the communities recovering from the storm. Eliminates the accelerated pathway to a tax cut for billionaires. So obviously they threw that out. And would ensure that the government can continue to operate at full capacity. President Biden supports moving this legislation forward and ensuring that vital services and government provides for ensuring that the vital services the government provides for hardworking Americans, from issuing Social Security checks to processing benefits for veterans, can continue as well to grant assistance for communities that were impacted by devastating hurricanes. Okay. The speaker, of course, pointed out that we also in this bill, as you know, took care of Americans who desperately needed and deserved the assistance. We also took care of our farmers, many of whom were on the brink of collapse because of Bidenomics, frankly, because the inflationary cost of their inputs. So the Speaker Johnson did say that Trump was pleased with the final bill. He knew exactly what we were doing and why. This is a good outcome for the country. I think he certainly is happy about this outcome as well. So there you go. I mean, obviously the Senate still has to pass it, but it looks like the White House isn't going to stand in the way. So the question that we've been running around, which, by the way, this whole time this fight's been going on, people have been asking, where the hell is Joe Biden? Joe Biden hadn't made a statement. He's been hiding. He's been away from people, so on and so forth. And some of the Democrats, too, have been flinging back this whole idea that now Elon Musk is the president and not Donald Trump, because of all of the tweets that Elon Musk was putting out about that original 1,500 plus page crap bill. Well, apparently some of this is like spilled out onto the airwaves. Here you can see in the Populous Times, the question's asked, who is the president right now? Scott Jennings flips the question on Democrats over Musk overshadowing Trump. Now, apparently, Representative Pramila Jayapal, she's a freaking waste of space from my state. I can't even imagine. I am so embarrassed every time this woman speaks, really. But anyway, she's the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And she apparently dared to ask whether Trump was still the president. Huh. Yeah, okay. But anyway, she asked this question. Let's just take a listen.
So now to the Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She is the chair of the Progressive Caucus. And Congresswoman, I really appreciate your time. Thank you. A moment no one expected to be in here 48 hours ago because there was a deal. Now it's gone. So I guess the question for you at this moment, now you had Musk come in, the thing blew up, the Republicans put out a bill, it failed, here we are. Are you open to negotiating again? Or are you in a position where you're saying you're only going to accept the bill that had already been agreed to before Musk got involved?
Well, Aaron, you did such a good job of describing the process that we went through. It's a four corners process, which means all the parties have to agree. That was the deal that got negotiated, that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, the Republican Speaker of the House, negotiated. Now, what happened here was laughable. This bill that they just put up, they are in the majority. Republicans control the House. They are in the majority, and they couldn't even get the majority of votes for this bill that they put up. So this is a long process to go through these negotiations. We already had a bill. We negotiated it. Mike Johnson agreed to it. And because, as you said, Elon Musk, a billionaire, tweeted about it, President Musk tweeted about it, these Republicans tried to go around their own caucus, all the work that's been done, and they are in charge of shutting down the government now. That is what's going to happen tomorrow night at midnight if we don't come to a deal.
Okay, so you caught. I'm not going to play the whole clip because it's like 6 minutes, but and believe me, she just bugs the hell out of me. I really wish she wasn't there, but that question kind of came out, and Scott Jennings, I got to tell you, I love this guy. Oh my gosh, Scott Jennings had a shot back about it, and well, let's just take a listen to his response.
For this squarely on Elon Musk first and foremost, and Trump after that, and that would be the timeline of how this played out. What do you say to her?
Well, she let the mask slip right at the end. She said, "Who's the president right now?" I mean, who's the president-elect? But she asked the right question first. Who is the president right now? Joe Biden, who we rarely hear from, and the Wall Street Journal reported today, has been diminished for the last 4 years, and we've had unelected people running around running the federal government, apparently. So if that is what they're worried about, if they're worried about people who aren't Donald Trump, running the government or having influence, I wonder where they've been the last 4 years. Now, this doesn't excuse anybody's behavior on Capitol Hill tonight, but I think it's pretty rich for Democrats to be worried about people who aren't Donald Trump having influence when the current president, a Democrat, is AWOL and apparently not able to execute the duties of the office.
So that brings me to my headline point. Scott Jennings referred to it. Well, apparently Scott Jennings isn't the only one that's taking a look at this. The rest of the media is starting to admit that Trump actually is the current president. You know what? The world is already looking at Trump as being the current president because we've had a non-existent president for 4 freaking years. Well, 3.5 or 3 3/4, whatever it is. But anyway, the media is finally admitting the fact that Joe Biden has been vacant. There's been a vacancy at the White House for his entire presidency. They're finally starting to get it. Well, all of this, of course, and all of these comments are because of a Wall Street Journal report that came out, and it, let's just say, paints the current president as the vegetable that we pretty much all knew. Okay? So that's the question. Where is Joe Biden? What has Joe Biden been doing? How has he been doing all this? Well, all of our fears, by the way, all of our fears, meaning the American people's fears, have come true. Joe Biden has been non compos mentis since he entered the office. And the news media is starting to catch on to this. Take a listen to this guy. He's a former CNN contributor, Chris Cillizza, all right? And listen to what he has to say about the whole thing.
As a reporter, I have a confession to make. I should have pushed harder earlier for more information about Joe Biden's mental and physical well-being and any signs of decline. So let me explain. Joe Biden was president from 2020 to 2024. I worked at CNN through 2022. During that time, the early part when I was at CNN, 2020 to 2022, Republicans would regularly ping me and say, why don't you ask more questions of Joe Biden and how he's doing? He's 76, 77, 78-year-old man. And I would sort of brush them off because what I would say is, well, there's no obvious evidence that he's declining. Yeah, he moves a little slower, he talks a little slower, but there's no evidence that he's declining. And the White House and the people around Joe Biden were absolutely adamant that suggesting anything, asking the question about whether he was in some physical, mental, or both decline was offensive. How could you? It's age shaming. And I think that impacted me at some level because while I did ask the question from time to time of, not directly the White House, but aides and people around in that orbit, I didn't really push on it, if I'm being honest. Now, once I left CNN and once it became a little bit more clear to me about Biden's age, I think I did write pretty regularly and talk pretty regularly about how I wasn't sure that this guy was up to it. And then obviously after the June 27th debate, everybody, including me, was writing and talking about it.
Okay, so a couple of things that I just want to point out. First of all, dude, we don't give a crap if you're apologizing to us now. We've been telling you this. Hell, I even mentioned it when he was in the presidential run about his plagiarism and his freaking lying and all of this other stuff. Conservatives have been telling you guys all about this. So you're sitting here, okay, and trying to apologize to us or to the American public for not doing your freaking job in the first place. And then I want you to hear that he's pointing out that, and notice this, when he was at CNN, he didn't ask the questions or start talking about it until he left. Could he be mentioning or sort of hinting at the fact that maybe the mainstream media was saying, you know what, we got to cover this up? You can't ask questions or whatever about this? Yeah. Right. Anyway, so the Wall Street Journal piece points out, by the way, and this is in the Daily Fetched because Wall Street Journal's behind a paywall, so there you go. So according to the Wall Street Journal report, sources within the administration have claimed that there's been a systematic approach to covering up information in public appearances to hide the reality of Joe Biden's health. I mean, seriously? And, it's the audacity of the whole thing, I think, that people don't seem to understand. This man has been gone since he took the freaking White House. And I am betting that this is going to go down in history as one of the worst. This is going to rank right up there with Woodrow Wilson. For those of you that don't know, Woodrow Wilson had a stroke. And for like 18 months of his second term, his wife actually ran the country. That Woodrow Wilson was in a wheelchair. He couldn't, he couldn't even speak. All of those things. But we didn't find out about that until much later because the press wasn't as large and wasn't as well connected as what we have with the technology for today. And so sitting here and telling us, I mean, the debate was the capper. We've known about this for a while, but the thing is that they couldn't come to grips with the whole thing. So here it is. Once again, we have another freaking conspiracy theory that has come true, folks. I think we're all batting about 1,000 now, right now. I really think so. We're hitting about 1,000. So apparently, during the 2020 primaries, according to the piece, Jill Biden participated in events in more counties than her husband did, which was highlighted by the press secretary at the time, Michael LaRosa. And so that by itself quickly drew the ire of Anthony Bernal, who was the then deputy campaign manager and chief of staff to Jill Biden. Bernal instructed LaRosa to contact the reporter to downplay the comparisons between Joe and his younger wife due to concerns that Biden's wife was casting shadows on her husband's comparatively slower pace. Yeah. According to the Wall Street Journal, too, Jill's dynamic and busy schedule highlighted the fact that Biden had major health problems. So, yeah, you remember that they bring this up, by the way, here in the piece too about. Do you remember that report about that Robert Hur put out about he's just a doddering old man? Well, now we know why that was even said. That he was forgetful and frail, and by the way, why they are holding on to the audio tapes of her. That the audio tapes that Hur took of Biden. That's why they're trying to cover them up and keep them locked in. That's exactly why. I mean, come on, people. I'm sort of rehashing this, but it's more of a yeah, we're right again, and sort of like thumbing my nose at the mainstream media, I guess, is really where this is going. But apparently, he also spent several, and this was as early as April, by the way. April of 2021. Now, for those of you who aren't really paying attention or aren't really good at calendars, Joe Biden took control on January 20th of 2021. And according to the Wall Street Journal's report, he was already at the point where he had to have what they called as good days and bad days, where he was not up to the task of being able to meet with people, and so they would reschedule and rejigger his appointments for that. Frequently canceling meetings and stuff due to those good days and bad days. I mean, also, too, by the way, there's reports as well where it was taking you often when somebody would go to brief the White House, they were told multiple times to basically make it quick, on point, and to make sure that, they didn't like cover any extraneous items. And often, too, they would be told, somebody would be told that, hey, I'm going to, you got to come to the White House and brief the president. And you'd be talking to a surrogate, such as one of the underlings, like Antony Blinken, for an example, instead of the president. I mean, they're just now fining on this. One Democrat strategist said much of Biden's executive authority had been wielded by key advisors, often referred to as the Biden whisperers, who worked in the shadows. They insulated this guy so much that he actually believed that running for a second term, that he was going to win. That's how bad this actually was. And there's even more. Joe Biden failed to remember lines during preparations for his interview with her. He failed to remember those things. Seriously, the perpetration, there's two big perpetrations right now that are out there that I honestly think are probably the two biggest pulling the wool over the eyes of the American people, because nobody's been able to necessarily prove this out. One of them is Joe Biden being a, shall we say, sentient president. And the second one, I hate to say it, kind of deals with Obama's birth certificate. So there we go. Oh, all right. Well, apparently the Biden admin spent all kinds of time covering up for Joe that, well, here we go again, folks. Here in the populist. The Biden admin apparently overestimated employment statistics again. And that was, of course, because this is retroactive, that was right before the election, by up to 3 million jobs. People, 3 million jobs. Yeah. Can you believe that? Well, we know that they've been fudging the numbers quite a bit. But apparently the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia has found that the Biden administration inflated employment statistics across 25 states in the second quarter of 2024. The second quarter of 2024 figures are the Fed's most updated statistics at this point. Biden administration reported a 1.8 national increase in employment, while the national survey showed only a 1.1% increase, both of which the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia believes are incorrect. The Reserve Bank believes that these figures were off by 1.2 to 1.9 percentage points, overestimating the number of jobs by over 3 million across all 50 states. In contrast, the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia's data for the second quarter of 2023 differed from the national statistics by just 0.1%, demonstrating the Philly Fed's high accuracy in estimating employment statistics. Now, if you recall, I was talking about how the Federal Reserve just dropped the interest rates an additional quarter point when they had done so, when they had dropped it a half point not that long ago. One of the things that the Federal Reserve was using as a indicator of the economy and whether or not they needed to lower the interest rates in order to boost the economy had to deal with the employment. And they kept talking about how the employment numbers are low and that this is great. This means that things are the economy is growing, that the economy is expanding. Yeah. Gee, I wonder what would happen if they realized that 3 million jobs were fudged. That means the economy wasn't expanding as far as what they think. Well, now that this has come out, there's talk of the fact that the Fed inflation projections have risen now. Now, I'm not saying that report and this are, correlate in any way, but it's kind of interesting to see that they were talking about this, and then all of a sudden, the Federal Reserve comes out and says, you know what? We're going to slow down rate cuts and warn of inflation risks, raising the 2025 inflation forecast in their new projections. Now, this in the Epoch Times talks about it. It says Federal Reserve officials have revised their inflation expectations for 2025 sharply higher, while risks to the inflationary outlook shifted from balanced to the upside, and markets have lowered their projections for the pace of future rate cuts amid fears that price pressures will stay higher for longer. In the latest summary of economic projections released on December 18th, Fed officials now see their two preferred inflation gauges, the personal consumption expenditures, known as the PCE, and core PCE measures, moving sharply higher next year compared to forecasts several months back. So in other words, folks, our economy is actually worse than what Biden and the administration has been trying to tell you. We haven't expanded our employment. And now the employment rate, by the way, or the unemployment rate is hovering just a little over 4%, by the way. Okay. But, yeah. So now they're talking about the expect PCE inflation of 2.5%. They were originally calling out 2.1% back in September. They also expect core PCE inflation, which strips out the volatile categories of food and energy, to rise to 2.5% next year, compared to the original projection of 2.2%. In a further signal of possible trouble ahead for inflationary outlooks, risks to both PCE and core PCE inflation have flipped to the upside. Fed officials shifted their assessment of inflation risk from September's broadly balanced to weighted to upside, with a level of uncertainty around the inflationary outlook also moving higher. So once again here, people, once again, we actually have a government that is lying to you. They're lying to all of us. They lied to us about Biden. They lied to us about all of the things about Trump. They've lied to us about the economy. They've been saying, oh, this has been wonderful and great. Yeah, no. We knew it. We knew it. It was out there. Yeah, this guy and his administration can't get out of here fast enough. Now, as a result of the mainstream media basically imploding over the course of the last several months, particularly the MSNBC buyout in particular, yeah, I doubled up on that. Sue me. Anyway, MSNBC's CEO is now demanding some changes be made. This in LifeZet. GOP voices are in with more primetime pay cuts. Yeah. So MSNBC is undergoing a significant transformation under the leadership of SpinCo. Remember, I told you about the whole spin-off of the MSNBC, and it was going to be, turned into SpinCo. But anyway, Mark Lazarus, who took the reins of the media group overseeing MSNBC in late November, he's now pushing for changes to shed the network's reputation for liberal bias and improve its ratings, as reported by the Daily Mail. Insiders have revealed his plans to increase the presence of Republican voices on the network and shift opinion programming away from prime time. These shifts come with a sharp edge, substantial pay cuts for prominent leftist hosts, including, of course, Joy Reid and Stephanie Ruhle. Rachel Maddow, Mad Cow Rachel, Russia Rachel, has already lost $5 million in her salary. It was reduced from 30 million down to 25 million annually. Okay, but that followed her agreement to another 5-year extension with the network back in 2022 because they were losing money. MSNBC's ratings have plummeted in the aftermath of the midterm elections, with the network averaging just 603,000 viewers in prime time since November 4th. This marks a 55% drop compared to its year-to-date average, according to the Nielsen data. Yeah, the daytime numbers look even more grim, with just 17,000 viewers in the key 25 to 54 demographic between noon and 7 p.m. Meanwhile, News Nation, which is a far smaller competitor, outperformed MSNBC in the same demographic, beating them with just 23,000 viewers. Mainstream media is dead, folks. It is dead. And this is just an example of it. I don't know if they can actually do anything to, resolve their situation, but... So Lazarus by himself has promised a new growth trajectory for MSNBC and other networks. But Joy Reid and Stephanie Ruhle, both fixtures of MSNBC's progressive primetime programming, have reportedly been informed of impending pay reductions. So let's hope and pray that Joy Reid, Joyless Reid, ends up basically telling the network where they can stick it with their she probably will, just because of the fact with their pay cuts. But anyway, so the Morning Joe co-host Jonathan Lemire is also rumored to be facing a similar cut. The moves have left staffers uneasy, while with some reportedly bracing for further changes. So apparently and reportedly, he's not planning on overhauling the network's liberal identity entirely. High-profile figures like Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell are not expected to change their on-air personas. That sucks. Well, any Republicans that end up going over to MSNBC, though, that'll definitely be entertaining. That'll be entertaining. Well, there is a question running around, and I didn't have this in the show notes because I've actually increased my pace here for some reason. But anyway, let's go ahead and check this out. This in the Federalist, they're still trying to understand what happened in 2024. So the questions have been asked in terms of 6 million presidential votes that went to the Democrats, Joe Biden in particular, in 2020. And they're trying to figure out, there's some people out there trying to figure out where the hell these 6 million votes went to. Let me just say 3 million. They have actually found that 3 million of the votes potentially could be explained by the transfer over to Trump. But the question still remains, where did 3 million votes go? Because according to this piece, Kamala Harris did not come close to even performing as well as Biden did. She ended up, losing that 6 million. And they're trying to figure out where the heck they went. Assuming, of course, even half of those 3 million, even half of that 6 million, which would be the 3 million going to Trump, this still leaves the question of what happened to Biden's 3 million votes. Now, they also said that they didn't go to third-party candidates. So there's no explanation as to where these additional 3 million votes went, because the totals, they said, actually for the third-party candidates declined in 2024. So there's votes that are gone. There's votes that just apparently disappeared between 2020 and 2024. And here's the thing. Just like I've shown you before, I showed you what this was, a couple months back, where we were, or maybe not a couple months, maybe it was last month. But anyway, I was talking about the program and about the social media going nuts over all of this. This is an indication that 2020 was an outlier, okay? That 2020 was a anomaly, and it was. It showed up as an anomaly of the bellwether states. It showed up as an anomaly of number of votes. Like, for an example, Joe Biden apparently outperformed Barack Obama. There was no way that Joe Biden could outperform Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a much more charismatic individual than Joe Biden ever could be. And if you recall, back in 2020, Joe Biden campaigned from his basement. How the hell did all of those votes disappear? Well, Harris's totals, according to the piece here, were in 44 states were below Joe Biden's, according to the writer's calculations. And this person was using vote totals rounded from the Federal Election Commission results for 2016 and 2020, and the currently available results from the 50 states and D.C. for 2024. Harris improved the 2024 vote tally over Biden's 2020 tally in only 6 states. Utah's vote for Harris increased over Biden by a mere 2,300 votes. Folks, you can make the assumptions that you want out of this, but I am just simply stating that these numbers and the math isn't jiving to where 2020 was the most secure election possible. I mean, it is entirely possible. Okay, let's just play devil's advocate here with me. It is entirely possible, because 2020 was during COVID, that 3 million people who normally would ignore the elections had a bunch of time on their hands, and so they decided, hey, just for a thrill to get out of the house, I'm going to go ahead and vote. It's possible, but I think also, too, that it warrants, all right, it warrants further investigation to understand what happened. Because Kamala Harris picked up about 75-ish million votes, okay? Joe Biden supposedly got 81 million votes in 2020. And by the way, Donald Trump increased his number of votes, like I was saying in the piece, from 74 million to 77 point something million votes. So, I mean, obviously, again, some of it could be potentially that it shifted from Joe Biden over to Donald Trump. But the question still remains, there's a gap there in the math. So they go through in this piece, they list a whole bunch of other states and so on and so forth. They list a bunch of states and so on and so forth in terms of where these, where the discrepancies appeared or whatever for the 7 swing states. And then they take a look again at some other sampling of 10 states. So, but again, I mean, nothing really definitive comes out of this, but this definitely begs the question, what the hell happened in 2020? And if it was the most secure and most fair election ever, where 3 million people decide to not vote? Especially considering that 2024 was the most consequential election, I think, in my lifetime, for sure. So, anyway, the writer of the piece does point out that Biden's 2020 total of 81 million was an outlier, since it was a whopping 15 million more than Hillary Clinton's vote total in 2016. But again, Trump's vote total in 2020 of 73 million was 11 million over his 63 million in 2016. But yet nobody's claiming, by the way, that Trump's 2020 victory or total was inflated by illegal votes. Yeah. No, I don't think we will ever have an answer to this entire thing. All right, folks, that is about it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free, and once you are signed up and signed in, search up the American Perspective channel. Make sure you hit that green follow button to be notified every time I go live. Tomorrow night is Saturday, so we are 1 hour later, and yes, I do have a question of the week submitted by a new person to that segment. And I thank you for that. And so, yes, there will be a question of the week tomorrow. Tomorrow night's show is at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Don't forget to hit those thumbs ups, likes across all of my platforms. That would be X, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you all tomorrow night. Have a great night, the rest of your night, and into the weekend. Have a, well, I've already said, have a great rest of your evening. We'll see you all tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.